Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the massive alien ship appear on his screens. The year was 2157, and humanity had just learned to travel faster than light only 3 months ago. Now they faced something that would change everything forever. The alien vessel was 10 times larger than his ship, with smooth silver walls that seemed to glow with their own light. Jake had been exploring the edge of human space when his sensors picked up the strange readings. He never expected to find other intelligent life so soon after leaving Earth's solar system. The communications officer, Lisa Park, turned to him with wide eyes and said the aliens were trying to talk to them. Jake took a deep breath and told her to open the channel. The screen filled with the image of a tall creature that looked almost human but had skin like clear crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns. The being spoke in perfect English, which surprised everyone on the bridge. It said its name was Ambassador Zexthon of the Galactic Coalition, and it wanted to meet with the humans who had just entered their space. Jake felt his heart racing as he realized humanity was no longer alone in the universe. He agreed to meet, and both ships moved to a neutral location between 2 small moons. The formal first contact ceremony took place in a specially prepared meeting room aboard the alien ship. Jake brought his science officer, Dr. Ben Collins, and his security chief commander, Amy Foster. The alien ship was amazing inside, with walls that seemed to be made of living light and air that tasted like flowers. Ambassador Zexthon waited for them in a large room with other aliens of different species. There was a tall insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, a being that looked like it was made of flowing water, and others that Jake could not even begin to describe. The ambassador welcomed them warmly and said he was excited to meet a new species. He explained that the Galactic Coalition was an alliance of 12 different alien races that had been working together for thousands of years to bring peace and order to the galaxy. Jake felt hopeful as he listened to the ambassador talk about cooperation and friendship between species, but everything changed when the aliens learned about humanity's recent discovery of faster-than-light travel, Dr. Collins proudly explained. How human scientists had worked for decades to develop their FTL drive and how they had only achieved it 3 months ago. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that Jake could not read. Then Ambassador Zexthon asked to scan the humans. To learn more about their biology, Jake agreed, thinking it was part of normal first contact procedures. The insect alien Dr. Vashikol used a small device to examine the 3 humans. After a few minutes, the creature began making clicking sounds that Jake realized was laughter. Dr. Vashikol announced to the room that humans were among the weakest species they had ever encountered. The alien said humans had no natural armor like the crystal beings, no claws like the insect race, no telepathic powers like the water creatures, and no enhanced strength like most other species. The aliens began talking among themselves in their own languages, and Jake could hear what sounded like amusement in their voices. Ambassador Zexthon turned back to the humans with what might have been a smile, and said that humanity was clearly too weak to survive on its own in the dangerous galaxy. He offered humanity a place as a protected species under coalition rule. The ambassador explained that humans would be given safe worlds to live on where they would be protected from the many threats that existed in space. In return, humans would work for the coalition using their small size and quick fingers to do delicate tasks that the larger alien species found difficult. Jake felt anger building inside him as he realized the aliens saw humans as nothing more than potential servants. He politely declined the offer and said that humanity preferred to remain independent. This caused more clicking laughter from Dr. Vashikol, who said that soft-skinned primitives like humans would not last a year without protection. Commander Thekmar of the Coalition fleet joined the conversation and made jokes about how humans looked like they would break if someone touched them too hard. The alien commander said his own species had natural armor plating and could lift 10 times their body weight. He wondered how such weak creatures had even survived long enough to develop space travel. Jake kept his temper under control and explained that humans might look weak, but they were tougher than they appeared. This only made the aliens laugh harder. Ambassador Zexthon said he found human confidence amusing and told them that when They realized how dangerous the galaxy really was. They would come begging for coalition protection. The meeting ended with the aliens leaving while still chuckling about the weak little humans they had discovered. Jake and his team returned too, their ship feeling humiliated and angry as the Horizon headed back toward Earth. Jake wondered if the aliens were right about humanity being too weak to survive, but deep down, he felt something the aliens had missed, something that would prove them very wrong about human strength. The journey home took 2 weeks, and Jake spent the time writing his report about first contact. He knew that Admiral Lisa, Grant, and the other military leaders on Earth would not be happy about the aliens' attitude toward humanity, but he also knew that humans had surprised everyone before when they were underestimated, as Earth grew larger on the view screen. Jake felt certain that this would not be the last time humanity dealt with the Galactic Coalition. 6 months passed after the first meeting with the aliens, and life on Earth continued as normal until the day Admiral Lisa Grant received an urgent message from the outer monitoring stations. A large fleet of alien ships had appeared at the edge of human space, and they were not here for a friendly visit. President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting in the underground command center beneath Geneva, where all the world leaders gathered to hear the news. Ambassador Zexthon had returned. But this time he brought 50 warships with him, and his message was very different from their first meeting. The alien appeared on the main screen looking more serious than before and told President Santos that the coalition had made an important discovery. Human space contained several worlds that were rich in quantum crystals, which were needed for the most advanced alien technologies. These crystals were extremely rare in the galaxy, and the coalition needed them to maintain their civilization. Zexthon explained that the coalition was offering humanity a generous deal. If humans would give up the crystal-rich worlds peacefully, then humanity would be granted protected status and comfortable homes on other planets. The aliens would take care of all human needs and protect them from the dangers of space. President Santos asked what would happen if humanity refused this generous offer. The ambassador's crystal skin seemed to grow darker as he replied that refusing would be very unwise. He said the coalition had thousands of ships and millions of soldiers, while humanity had barely 50 ships and no real military. He gave humanity 30 days to make the right choice. When the transmission ended, the room fell silent as everyone realized what was really happening. Dr. Alan Pierce, who studied alien life forms, had been analyzing coalition records during the past 6 months, and his findings were disturbing. Every species that joined the coalition had either volunteered to be absorbed or been conquered by force. Those who resisted were either enslaved or completely destroyed. The coalition's history showed the same pattern over and over. They would offer protection to weaker species and then slowly take away their rights, until they became nothing more than slaves. Dr. Pierce explained that the coalition had been doing this for over 3,000 years, and no species had ever successfully resisted them. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Davis began preparing Earth's defenses. Even though everyone knew the situation looked hopeless, humanity's entire space fleet consisted of only 47 ships compared to the coalition's thousands. Most human ships were designed for exploration and research, not fighting. The weapons they carried were meant for protection against pirates and asteroids, not alien warships. General Patricia Hayes ran computer simulations of what would happen if fighting started and every scenario showed humanity being crushed within days. The coalition ships were larger, faster, and had better weapons than anything humans could build. Colonel Davis tried different strategies, but nothing seemed to work against such overwhelming odds, while the military planned for the worst ambassador. Zexthon sent messages to human colonies throughout space. The alien broadcasts were meant to convince people that resistance was pointless and surrender was the smart choice. He described how comfortable life would be under coalition protection and warned about the terrible consequences of fighting. The ambassador said the coalition did not want to hurt anyone, but they would do whatever was necessary to get the quantum crystals they needed. Commander Thekmar also sent his own messages to human military bases. The alien warrior seemed to enjoy describing his fleet's power and the futility of human resistance. He said his ships had shields that could stop any human weapon and guns, that could destroy a planet. The alien commander boasted that his species had conquered dozens of worlds and never lost a single battle. He encouraged human soldiers to surrender immediately when fighting started to avoid unnecessary suffering. But unknown to the coalition, President Santos had already made her decision about humanity's response. She called Director Sam Kelly, who ran Earth's intelligence services, and told him to begin secret preparations. These preparations were hidden from most people, and even from other government leaders. President Santos knew that if humanity was going to have any chance of survival, they needed to be ready for a different kind of war than the aliens expected. Dr. Pierce continued studying coalition biology and tactics, looking for any possible weaknesses. He discovered that most coalition species came from worlds with lighter gravity than Earth, which made them physically weaker than they appeared. More importantly, the aliens had no experience fighting enemies who refused to follow traditional military rules. For thousands of years, the coalition had faced opponents who fought the same way they did, with big fleets meeting in open space for decisive battles. Colonel Davis began developing new strategies based on this information. Instead of trying to match the coalition's strength, humanity would use different tactics that played to human advantages. The plan involved turning every human world into a fortress and every human into a potential soldier. As the 30-day deadline approached, the coalition fleet moved closer to human space, taking positions around the most important colonies. The aliens made no attempt to hide their movements, wanting humans to see the massive force gathering against them. Commander Thekmar's flagship alone was larger than Earth's entire military fleet, and it was just one ship among hundreds. The sight of so many alien warships filled many humans with fear, and some colonies sent messages to Earth asking if they should surrender. But President Santos remained firm in her decision. On the final day of the deadline, she prepared to give humanity's answer to the galaxy. The response was broadcast on all frequencies so that every species in coalition space could hear what the weak humans had decided. President Maria Santos stood before the cameras knowing that her next words would determine humanity's future. She thanked Ambassador Zexathan for the coalition's generous offer, but politely declined, saying that humanity chose freedom over protection. Her message was broadcast throughout coalition space, where subject species heard humans openly defying their masters for the first time in galactic history. The president's calm voice carried across star systems, as she explained that humans preferred to face danger as free people rather than live safely as slaves. She ended by saying that humanity was ready to defend its independence no matter what the cost might be. Ambassador Zexathan's response came within minutes, and his crystal face showed pure rage at what he called primitive arrogance. He declared that the coalition would begin pacification operations immediately, and that humans would learn the price of defying their betters. Commander Thekmar's voice followed with a promise that human resistance would be crushed quickly and completely. But the aliens had no idea what they were really facing, because President Santos had spent the past month preparing something the coalition had never encountered before. She had called an emergency session of the World Council 3 weeks earlier and revealed intelligence that changed everything. Director Sam Kelly had discovered that the coalition's strength came from their unity, but their individual species had grown soft from millennia of easy conquests. Dr. Alan Pierce presented his analysis of coalition biology and psychology, showing that most alien species were actually weaker than humans despite their advanced technology. More importantly, they had no concept of guerrilla warfare or the kind of desperate innovation that emerged from human conflict. The coalition had always fought traditional battles with clear rules and expected their enemies to do the same. Colonel Ryan Davis unveiled Operation Defiance, which was humanity's real response plan, instead of meeting the coalition in space. Battles where humans were outgunned, the strategy focused on humanity's advantages. Humans were more adaptable, more creative, and more ruthless when cornered than any species the coalition had faced. The plan involved using tactics that the aliens would never expect because they violated every rule of civilized warfare. Lieutenant Commander Kate Phillips had been secretly converting civilian ships into weapons using plans that Dr. Ben Collins developed. Cargo haulers became missile platforms while passenger ships turned into fast attack vessels. Chief Engineer Carlos Martinez created new tactics for using humanity's smaller ships to maximum advantage. The converted civilian fleet would strike fast and disappear before the aliens could respond. Every human world had been turned into a fortress during the past month, with hidden weapons and secret bunkers built into cities and towns. Governor Paul Stevens of the colony New Geneva had evacuated all non-essential people while organizing defenses that should have been impossible with limited resources. The remaining colonists were ready to fight, using weapons hidden in schools, hospitals, and even children's playgrounds. When the coalition fleet arrived at New Geneva expecting easy victory, they found something completely different: the human. Colonists did not surrender when faced with overwhelming odds, but instead fought with desperate fury that shocked the alien soldiers. The coalition had never seen defenders who would rather die than give up. Human tactics confused and terrified the aliens, who expected civilized surrender after a show of force. Instead, humans used every dirty trick they could think of, including ramming damaged ships into coalition vessels and using civilian transports as improvised bombs. The battle for New Geneva lasted 3 days, instead of the 3 hours the aliens expected. Commander Tekmar lost 12 ships and hundreds of soldiers, taking a colony that should have fallen without a fight. But the real shock came when the coalition finally captured the planet. The humans had destroyed everything of value before retreating and left behind traps that continued killing alien soldiers for weeks. The surviving colonists had escaped through hidden tunnels and were already organizing resistance movements on nearby worlds. Admiral Lisa Grant launched Operation Mosquito while the coalition was still trying to understand what happened at New Geneva. Small human ships began hitting coalition supply lines across a dozen star systems using hit-and-run tactics that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Captain Nicole Baker led raids that struck at coalition fuel depots and communication stations. Her ships would attack and escape before the aliens could respond. Major Tony Rodriguez organized resistance cells on worlds that the coalition thought they controlled. These groups began sabotaging alien equipment and helping other species plan their own rebellions. Dr. Vashkol studied captured human soldiers and made a disturbing discovery that he reported to Coalition High Command. Humans released special chemicals when fighting that made them stronger and faster than normal scans suggested. This biological response, combined with their refusal to surrender, made them far more dangerous than anyone realized. The Coalition's subject species began to notice that someone was not only resisting their masters, but actually hurting them. Secret messages of support started reaching human forces, though no species dared openly rebel yet. Commander Tekmar requested reinforcements as human forces proved far more difficult to defeat than anticipated. The coalition began to realize that their easy conquest had turned into something they had never faced before. For the first time in over 1,000 years, they were fighting a real war against an enemy that refused to follow the rules. 6 months into the war, the coalition's confidence had completely disappeared, and what started as a simple police action had become a nightmare that drained their resources and broke their morale. The coalition forces, who were used to easy victories against frightened opponents, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to get stronger with every battle. Captain Danny Turner defended the industrial world of New Foundry, where humans had built new weapons designed specifically to fight Coalition technology. Engineer Rachel Ward created armor that learned from each alien attack and adapted to become stronger, while weapons specialist Kevin Stone developed missiles that could think their way around Coalition shields and find weak points in alien ships. The Coalition's greatest advantage, which was their superior technology, began to fail as humans captured alien equipment and made it better. Dr. Amanda Clark led research teams that not only copied Coalition designs, but improved them in ways that shocked the aliens. Human engineers took alien weapons and made them more powerful, while alien armor became lighter and stronger in human hands. The combination of human creativity and alien technology produced weapons that often worked better than the originals. Commander Thekmar received reports of human ships using coalition weapons against their own makers, and he could not understand how primitive humans could improve on technology that took his people thousands of years to develop. The war's turning point came when Colonel Frank Miller planned a daring attack on the Coalition shipyards at Kethmos Prime. Using captured alien ships operated by human crews, the raiders struck at the heart of Coalition space where no enemy had ever attacked before. The psychological impact was devastating, as Coalition civilians watched their core worlds burn for the first time in their species' history. Miller's forces destroyed 3 major construction facilities and escaped before reinforcements could arrive. The attack proved that nowhere in Coalition space was truly safe from human raiders. Ambassador Zexthan faced growing pressure from Coalition member species who began questioning whether this war was worth the cost. The insect hive queens expressed concern about resource expenditure, while the crystalline Vorth wondered if the Coalition was still invincible. Other member species started asking why they were fighting so hard for crystals when the war was costing more than the crystals were worth. Subject species across Coalition space began experiencing equipment failures and communication breakdowns. As human sabotage operations spread like a disease, Director Sam Kelly's agents had infiltrated Coalition supply lines and were teaching other species how to resist their masters. The rebellion that started with humanity was spreading to every corner of the galaxy as oppressed peoples learned they could fight back. What shocked the Coalition most was how humans treated their prisoners, instead of enslaving or killing captured. Alien soldiers' humans provided medical care and tried to teach them about human history and philosophy. Some Coalition prisoners began questioning their empire's methods after learning how humans lived as free people. A few alien soldiers even requested asylum, preferring to stay with humans rather than return to their own species. Dr. Vash Cole studied these defectors and reported that prolonged contact with humans seemed to change how aliens thought about freedom and independence. The Coalition had never faced an enemy that tried to convert prisoners through kindness rather than force. This gentle treatment of captives became another weapon in humanity's arsenal, as stories spread through Coalition space about aliens who chose to join the humans. Commander Thekmar's own soldiers began asking questions about why they were fighting, and whether the Coalition's cause was just. The alien commander found himself having to watch his troops for signs of disloyalty, which had never been a problem before. Morale among Coalition forces dropped so low that some units refused orders to attack human positions. Meanwhile, human forces grew stronger as more species joined their cause. The galaxy learned that fighting humans meant fighting an idea that could not be killed with weapons. The idea that all intelligent beings deserved freedom and the right to choose their own future. Captain Nicole Baker's raids became bolder as her fleet grew with ships donated by sympathetic aliens. Her forces struck deeper into Coalition territory, attacking targets that had been considered completely safe. Major Tony Rodriguez reported that resistance movements were active on over 200 Coalition worlds, and the number was growing. Every day, these rebels had learned human tactics and were using them against their oppressors with devastating effect. The Coalition High Command realized they faced something unprecedented in galactic history, not just a military defeat, but the complete collapse of the system that had kept them in power for millennia. Dr. Alan Pierce analyzed intercepted Coalition communications and discovered that several member species were secretly negotiating separate peace agreements with humanity. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy was fracturing as species chose their own interests over Coalition unity. Director Kelly confirmed that the crystalline Vorth had already agreed to stop fighting humans in exchange for protection from other Coalition species. The insect hive queens were considering a similar deal, while even Commander Thekmar's own people questioned whether they should continue the war. President Santos received daily reports showing that the tide had turned decisively in humanity's favor. What started as a desperate fight for survival had become a revolution that would reshape the entire galaxy. 2 years after the war began, the coalition faced complete strategic failure as their military forces crumbled and their political unity shattered like glass. Their economy strained under the cost of fighting an enemy that refused to be defeated. While member species abandoned the alliance to save themselves, President Maria Santos now led a humanity that had transformed itself from helpless primitives into the most feared military force in the galaxy. When Ambassador Zexathon sent a formal request for peace negotiations, his crystal skin had lost its bright shine and his voice carried none of its former arrogance. The peace talks took place at Haven Point, a neutral station built jointly by humans and the many species that had declared independence during the chaos of war. Secretary Helen Young represented humanity in the negotiations, while Ambassador Zexathon sat across from her, looking like a broken leader of a dying empire. The coalition delegation included representatives from former subject species who now demanded their own voice in galactic affairs. The Vorth crystalline beings had been the first to break away, followed by 3 insect hive colonies and a dozen smaller species. Each group told stories of oppression under coalition rule and their gratitude to humanity for showing them that resistance was possible. The final treaty established humanity not as a protected species, but as an equal leader. In a new democratic federation where all species could choose their own future, the old coalition structure dissolved, completely replaced by a council where every species had equal representation regardless of their military strength. Humanity gained full protection for their territorial claims while agreeing to share defensive technologies with any species that wanted them. General Patricia Hayes oversaw the creation of the Terran Defense Forces as a peacekeeping organization that would protect smaller species from future aggression. Many former coalition species requested human military advisors to help rebuild their own forces using the tactics that had proven so effective against oppression. The galaxy watched in amazement as humans helped their former enemies rather than conquering them. Dr. Ben Collins headed the new Interspecies Research Institute where scientists from dozens of worlds worked together to advance civilization. Human innovation combined with alien knowledge created technologies that benefited everyone. As former enemies became partners in exploration and discovery, the exchange of ideas moved faster than anyone expected as species eager to make up for. Lost Time shared their greatest scientific achievements. Captain Jake Morrison, who had made first contact, became Admiral Morrison and head of Galactic Exploration Command. His mission was to find new worlds and make contact with species beyond the former coalition territory. The exploration fleets included volunteers from every member species working together to expand the boundaries of known space. Dr. Amanda Clark developed new FTL drives that used human engineering combined with alien science to travel farther and faster than ever before. These ships carried mixed crews where humans worked alongside beings they had once fought. Colonel Frank Miller established the Galactic Military Academy, where officers from all species learned the art of warfare from human instructors. The academy taught not just tactics and strategy, but also the ethical principles that should guide the use of force. Students learned that true victory came from protecting the innocent rather than conquering the weak. Commander Thekmar himself enrolled in the academy, seeking to understand how humans had defeated his supposedly invincible forces. The proud alien warrior studied human military history and gradually learned to respect the species he had once mocked. Dr. Vashkol worked with human scientists to understand the biological and psychological factors that made humans such effective fighters. His research revealed that human strength came not from any single trait, but from the combination of adaptability, creativity, and moral courage. The insect scientist published papers explaining how humans had succeeded where other species failed because they refused to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. Captain Nicole Baker commanded the new rapid response fleet that intervened when conflicts arose between species. Her ships carried peacekeepers from many worlds who used human tactics to stop aggression before it could escalate into war. The Fleet's reputation for effectiveness grew as they resolved disputes that might have led to devastating conflicts in the old galaxy. Major Tony Rodriguez led the Resistance Studies Institute, where former rebels taught oppressed species how to defend their freedom. The institute became a symbol of hope for beings throughout the galaxy who faced tyranny from local dictators or aggressive neighbors. Director Sam Kelly's intelligence network evolved into a galaxy-wide information service that helped species communicate and coordinate their efforts for mutual benefit. The network detected potential threats early and coordinated responses that prevented many conflicts from starting. President Santos announced that the 5th anniversary of First Contact would be celebrated as Galactic Unity Day, when all species would remember how they had overcome their differences to build something better. The celebration would take place on Earth, where representatives from every world would gather to renew their commitment to peace and cooperation. As the anniversary approached, President Santos reflected on how much had changed since Ambassador Zexathon first laughed at human weakness. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from domination, but from the courage to stand for what was right and the wisdom to help others achieve their potential. Humanity had proven that being called weak meant nothing if you had the will to fight for your freedom and the vision to create something better from the ashes of war. 5 years after the war ended, the first Galactic Unity Festival began on Earth, where beings from hundreds of worlds gathered to celebrate their shared future. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Unity Station orbiting Earth and watched ships from across the galaxy arrive for the celebration. Vorth crystal ships gleamed like diamonds next to sleek human vessels, while insect hive colonies sent their distinctive organic-looking craft. Each ship represented a species that had chosen freedom over oppression and cooperation over conquest. The festival grounds covered half of North America, where temporary cities housed visitors from worlds humans had never imagined. Children of different species played together in parks, while their parents discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges that would have been impossible under the old coalition system. President Santos gave the opening speech to an audience of millions both present and watching across the galaxy. She spoke about the journey from that first meeting when aliens called humans weak to this moment when all species stood as equals. Her words were translated into hundreds of languages, as beings throughout space heard the message of hope and unity. Ambassador Zexathon approached Admiral Morrison during the evening reception, and the former enemies spoke as friends for the first time. The crystal alien admitted that the coalition's greatest mistake was not just underestimating human military strength, but failing to understand human capacity for forgiveness and cooperation. Zexathon now served as the Cathari representative to the Democratic Council, where he worked to ensure that his people's mistakes would never be repeated. He had become one of humanity's strongest supporters, and often spoke about how the war had taught his species the difference between ruling through fear and leading through respect. Dr. Alan Pierce presented his research on interspecies cooperation, showing how the galaxy had become more prosperous and peaceful than ever before. Trade between worlds flourished as species shared resources and knowledge, while conflicts that might have led to wars were resolved through negotiation and compromise. The new Federation had eliminated poverty on dozens of worlds and brought education and medical care to billions of beings who had been ignored under Coalition rule. Captain Danny Turner commanded the joint fleet that protected shipping lanes and responded to emergencies throughout Federated space. His crews included volunteers from every member species working together to maintain the peace that humanity had helped create. The success of mixed crews proved that cooperation between species was not just possible, but more effective than any single race working alone. Engineer Rachel Ward unveiled new terraforming technology that could transform dead worlds into gardens, where multiple species could live together. Her work promised to solve the population problems that had driven much of the old coalition's aggressive expansion. Dr. Amanda Clark announced the development of quantum communication networks that would allow instant contact between the farthest reaches of federated space. The technology combined human engineering with innovations from a dozen alien species to create something none could have achieved alone. General Patricia Hayes reported that military conflicts between Federation members had dropped to almost zero, as species learned to resolve their differences through peaceful means. The few remaining disputes were handled by mediation teams that included representatives from neutral worlds. Colonel Frank Miller's academy had graduated its first class of interspecies officers who would serve as peacekeepers and explorers throughout the galaxy. These young beings represented the hope of a future where cooperation between species would be the normal way of life, rather than a remarkable exception. Commander Theckamar had become one of the Academy's most respected instructors teaching courses on the ethics of warfare and the importance of protecting civilian populations. His transformation from ruthless conqueror to protector of the innocent showed how even the most hardened warriors could change when exposed to human values. Major Tony Rodriguez established the Freedom Memorial on Earth, where the names of all beings who died fighting for independence were inscribed in stone. The memorial included coalition soldiers who had died in the war alongside human and alien resistance fighters. It served as a reminder that the cost of freedom was always high, but the cost of slavery was higher. Dr. Vashkol published the definitive study of human biology and psychology that explained how a species the coalition dismissed as primitive had reshaped galactic civilization. His work became required reading at universities throughout Federated space, where students learned about the power of determination and moral courage. Captain Nicole Baker's rapid response fleet had prevented 17 potential conflicts in the past year alone. Her success showed that military force used wisely could preserve peace rather than destroy it. The fleet had become a symbol of the Federation's commitment to protecting all member species regardless of their size or strength. Director Sam Kelly's information network had evolved into the Galactic Truth Service that provided accurate news and analysis to every world in Federated space. The service helped prevent the spread of propaganda and misinformation that had been used to justify oppression under the old system. President Santos announced that humanity would share its most advanced military technologies with any species that requested them. This gesture of trust amazed many aliens who remembered how the coalition had hoarded knowledge to maintain their advantage over subject species. As the festival continued, Admiral Morrison walked through crowds of beings who had once been enemies and marveled at how much the galaxy had changed. Everywhere he looked, he saw proof that Ambassador Zexthon had been wrong about human weakness. Humanity's greatest strength was not their ability to fight, but their refusal to become like their oppressors. The galaxy had learned that true power came from lifting others up rather than holding them down, and that lasting peace could only be built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared prosperity. The festival ended with a ceremony where representatives from every world pledged to work together for the benefit of all intelligent life. As the last ships departed Earth carried with them the promise of a better future for the galaxy.